7:33 right now. President Obama's approval rating now at a new career low, 43%, according to a Washington Post ABC News poll. Meantime, 53% of those surveyed disapprove of the overall job he's doing. That is a new high. When it comes to the top issues the nation is facing right now, the economy and jobs outlook, more than 60% disapprove of the way the president is handling things. Let's talk more about that with Stephen Dennis, staff writer at Roll Call. Stephen, good to see you. I'm guessing that he's going to try to at least hope to improve on that with the big speech coming up on Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, he absolutely needs to shake things up. And, you know, he's facing a Congress that isn't likely to do a whole lot for the next year. And so what happens when you have a Congress that's probably not going to do much, at least the kinds of things that you want? You have to start running against them. You have to start running as Harry Truman against a do-nothing Congress and say, hey, I want more bridges built. I want to put construction workers back to work. And this Congress doesn't want to do anything. All they want to do is cut things and roll back regulations.
And we hear things from a partisan standpoint when you look at people like Eric Cantor, who's been very vocal about saying, look, I want to kind of make sure that the president doesn't get done what he wants to do. How is that going to play out in the next year?
Well, I think you're going to have two tracks. One track is going to be this political track where they're going to be mudslinging back and forth and blaming each other for the bad economy. The second track is I think there is a chance here, a window, for getting another tax cut. Something like an extension of the payroll tax cut that the president wants. Eric Cantor and the Republicans have proposed a 20% tax cut for small businesses. Maybe some combination of those two things. Maybe a tax cut for new hiring. That's the kind of thing that they've agreed to in the past. Both parties have agreed to some kind of tax cut stimulus. The idea that a $50 billion or even larger infrastructure package, which President Obama, proposed when Democrats were in charge and couldn't get it through, that seems a little bit harder to imagine that that's going to be passed, but that gives them something to run on next year with the bad economy. Can say, hey, we would have put a million workers back to work if they'd passed this.
Before the president talks about jobs and the economy on Thursday, the Republicans have a big deal on Wednesday night. As they all get together to debate, how do you break down the GOP candidates right now?
Well, I think it was fascinating last night watching the CNN interview with Ed Rollins, Michelle Bachmann's outgoing campaign manager. He's sort of taking a step back.
Does that hurt her?
The deputy campaign manager is leaving. That shakeup, you never know who comes in and maybe juices that campaign. He said he was, at 68, he was too old for the job, basically. But, he was very frank and said that her fundraising had fallen off because Rick Perry had gotten in the race right when she had this big success and won the straw poll. And he said it's a two-person race and she's in third. And the two people are Rick Perry and Mitt Romney. And I think when your outgoing campaign manager says that, it's hard to break through. She's going to have to shake this race up a little bit. And I think another thing that's dynamic that's happening is people see that Obama is vulnerable, and people are starting to look a little bit less on who's firing them up the most and looking a little bit more on who's going to win. Who can I vote for who can beat Obama? And I think that that's something that's helping Perry and Romney, since they both have, they've both been governors. They've both run big enterprises. And Romney's done certainly better in head-to-head polls with Obama than Michelle Bachmann has.
It'll be interesting to see what happens on Wednesday night, but it does look like a two-person race at this point. Still a ways to go. Let's talk about a couple of other things that are happening. Of course, the president speaking on Thursday is drawing the attention in the headlines for Thursday. Something else is happening on Thursday, which might not be getting the attention, but maybe in some circles it should be.
Yeah, we have the super committee. This is the big, powerful new committee. 12 folks are going to be thrust together, very different people. They're going to have their first public meeting. And I think one thing that's really interesting about this committee, they have infinite power. There's nothing that they cannot decide to do.
They just have to agree on something.
They just have to agree on something. So, when you have infinite power, that's pretty good motivation for doing something. And, from all the folks I've talked to in the last few weeks about this, there's a sense that they will produce something, cobble together something, and not waste this opportunity they've been given. A lot of people lobby to be on this committee. If you're a politician, you don't want to be on a committee just to see it fail.
Right.
On the other hand, the optimism for a big, grand deal that's going to solve all our problems, that there really isn't much of that.
Certainly the pressure to get things done. Real quick, one other note that pretty much affects everybody that works for the federal government here. We talked so much about the possible government shutdown in the past. Are we reaching that point again now?
Yeah, the government runs out of money again. Not the debt limit issue, but September 30th is the end of the fiscal year. They haven't yet figured out how much to spend, for the next fiscal year, but they haven't agreed among themselves how to spend it, and that's half the battle. Looks like we're going to get another continuing resolution that kicks the can down the road another couple of months. But they've got to figure out things like disaster relief. The White House is saying they're going to need an extra $1.5 billion because of Hurricane Irene. You've had a lot of issues with how do you come up with that money? Do you have to cut something else? It could be a pretty messy few weeks here.
A lot to get done in a short amount of time.
Yep.
All right, Stephen Dennis from Roll Call. Thanks, Stephen. Always a pleasure. Al?
7:39.